Hey guys, it's Q&A Tuesday. So I'm not gonna pull up any names because I had a ton of you guys, probably over 50 emails that asked me the same question, and that was, Roman, talk about the new Rolex models. As much as I hate to jump on the bandwagon of every other YouTuber out there that has already discussed these Rolex models, well, you guys are my viewers, and I'm hoping you want to hear my opinion and my take on the new models. I'm going to quickly run through them, not to take up an entire episode, starting with the Submariner, 41 millimeters, right? The Submariner Date, which seems like a, I don't know, a half Hulk, right, with the green bezel. I guess this would be a Kermit reissue, right? Although the Kermit had a green dial, but a green bezel Rolex. And obviously the Date Rolex in the 41 millimeters, the 41 millimeter two-tone. And one that everybody's talking about, dubbed the new Blueberry, which is the 41 millimeter Submariner in white gold. So for the no date, the date, and the two-tone, not much has changed but the size. Therefore, I'm going to say bravo Rolex on changing the size and making them slightly bigger. Everybody wants a bigger watch. The trend for bigger watches has been around since probably 10 years ago, and Rolex is slowly but surely starting to oblige on some of their regular stuff. Half Kermit, half Hulk, half whatever you want to call it.
It's not easy being green.
Why not, right? This thing is going to sell like hotcakes. It's going to sell way over list, along with all the other ones, by the way.
It'll do fine.
But we'll get into that in a minute. But the green bezel on that Rolex, some people said, eh. Some people liked it. I personally like it. I think the green against the black looks great.
It's beautiful.
And furthermore, I'm going to jump right to the white gold one, and I wish they made that in stainless steel, but this is where I feel like Rolex got a little bit greedy. At what, 39,650 list is on this thing. It's a beautiful watch, right? Dubbed now the new Blueberry. I don't know where I heard that, one of the chats and stuff. I know for a fact that somebody just committed to one at $8,000 over list in a matter of a second when somebody posted one saying, hey, I have one incoming shortly. Whoever wants it is going to cost you, what was it, $37,000, so $45,000, and somebody bought it and it was a dealer, so I'm assuming he's going to try to resell for a lot more, right? 8,100 on a no date. Cheap? No, still kind of expensive considering what the retails used to be on these guys. This was your entry-level Submariner, right? 9150 on a date version, 9550 on the green bezel version. I don't understand why. Is green ceramic more expensive than black ceramic? I guess it is, but I think they did that because they felt that they could. Personally, I think they could have set these retail prices at $12,000, $13,000, or $14,000, and they will still sell. I'm surprised that they did not, and the reason for that is because they very well know what the market is today on Hulks, which, by the way, Hulks have gone through the roof now that, oh, wait a minute, the Hulks are done, the Hulks are discontinued, what are we going to do? Oh my God. I've seen one sell brand new for $22,500, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. But long story short, where are these going to trade? Depends on what happens with the Rolex hype, right? And I don't see the Rolex hype going away anytime soon. It's still very much alive. Prices have jumped up since they introduced new models and the rumor of the other models being discontinued. You're going to see these things trading right out the door for a lot of money, as it happens with every single new Rolex release. Every time Rolex releases something new, prices trade high and then they slowly come down a bit. But in this case, with the hype that's going on today, I think they're going to come out of the gate high, and I think they're going to stay high out of the gate, unless, again, something happens with the Rolex market. Just to quickly go back to the white gold, right? Listen, reasonably priced for a white gold Submariner, right? As far as retail is concerned. I don't know if this is going to be one that's going to start trading high. And I told you I have a confirmed transaction that I saw in the dealer chats today where somebody paid $8,000 over list, or committed to it at $8,000 over list, without even somebody having the watch in hand, saying that it's incoming within a reasonable amount of time, which means they are going to be trading over retail out of the gate. But right now, anything sports Rolex is trading over list. Even a lot of the gold and platinum models, they're all very, very close to list. The other day, I needed a 40 millimeter platinum date. You know, things that I could traditionally get 25, 30, sometimes even a little more off, 31 off, 32 off, right? Or 10% over dealer cost. The best I found was 20 back. And this is on an expensive platinum watch that retails around $60,000. That's unheard of for Rolex. This is where Rolex is right now. Doesn't look like it might be going anywhere soon. And with these new models, which, I mean, let's face it, let's be honest. What did Rolex do? Not a whole lot. They made the same shit and a little bit of a variation when it comes to Submariners, right? And also on a new Submariner white gold, I'm not sure if I am if I like this better than the other Smurf, the other white gold Submariner, because I kind of like the blue dial, blue bezel on the other one more. Although I must say, the more I look at this one, the contrast between black and blue and steel is also pretty kick-ass. So good job on that. Let's go back to the other new models. We also have new Datejust. I mean, all they did is they added 3 models in the 31mm size. They got a funky purple dial with diamond bezel, diamond dial in white gold. Let's see what this thing retails for. $16,050, which I think is very reasonable. The problem is going to be, again, the 31mm size. I do like the olive 31mm Datejust. I do like the olive dial, right? Again, coming in at $8,050, very, very reasonably priced. I think that's going to be a good seller for them. I think you will, maybe not out of the gate, but these things will be discounted, again, due to its small size. But I look at the 31mm sort of like, your traditional ladies Rolex was like that 27, 29, 28mm size, right? They kind of jumped it up to 31 because there's a lot of ladies out there that won't wear big watches, and 36mm becomes big for them. So I think 31mm is sort of the sweet spot. It's not too small, it's not too big. Moving on to the new Oyster Perpetual, right? This is where I think they knocked it out of the park. Because what they did is they gave you a big model, a 41mm model, and they retailed it for $5,900. It used to be that the entry-level Air King, right, was a small watch. It was a 36mm watch. There was nothing out there entry-level that was a big size. You would have to go up to a Submariner, right, to go slightly bigger, like a no-date Submariner. Where with the new Oyster Perpetual 41mm, they gave us just that. They gave us an entry-level option in a bigger size for a reasonable price. This is the Rolex that everybody that's out there that doesn't have a huge budget is going to go after. But unfortunately, I do feel that these models are also going to trade over list due to the fact that it's only $5,900 retail, right? Of course, they did some 36mm as well, and that's what they did in really, really bright colors. You have often seen Rolexes with custom dials, like aftermarket dials, bright green, bright blue, bright yellow. Companies pay attention to that stuff as well, and when they see that stuff out there and they see it selling, and they like the way it looks, and they see the general public takes to that, because if they go out on eBay and they see 150 Datejusts out there with aftermarket red or yellow dials, that means people are buying them, right? So why not make your own? So they did this sort of a turquoise dial, which I absolutely love the yellow dial. Then they stepped it down to a 31mm, which goes back to what I said in regards to sort of that happy medium for girls that don't want to wear big watches, but 27mm is too small. And they did one with sort of a coral, I guess I would call this a coral dial. Actually, they do call it a coral dial. They call it coral red. And again, $5,200 retail, relatively affordable for Rolex, right? What I sort of wish they did is they gave you that color combination in every size, right? Because as far as I'm concerned, on a 41mm, they went very plain. Now, I'm not sure, maybe they do give you that option in all these sizes, but according to their website, not yet. I'm sure eventually that they will. What I absolutely love in the 36mm is the green. That bright green is going to sell like hotcakes, even in the 36mm. Had they have done that and put it in the 41mm, it would have been absolutely amazing. But for now, it seems like the funky colors are at 36mm size. Again, not sure if they're going to take. I would love to see that olive green in a 41mm. I would personally wear that myself. But then again, I will also wear 36mm watch. So if I get my hands on one of those, I'll probably kick that around for a while, even in the 36mm. I guess worth mentioning 28mm, for those that still want a much smaller size, and that's done in that beautiful blue dial. And last but not least, let's talk about the new Sky-Dweller Oysterflex. Why not just give people an option to buy the distance strap? Well, because you're Rolex, and because you're Rolex, you want to make more money. And because you're Rolex, you're able to do so. There's guys out there, guarantee you, that probably have a Sky-Dweller on a strap, on a bracelet, and will want to add it on a rubber strap. I don't know if this is going to be interchangeable. Theoretically, it should be, right? So therefore, those that have this on a strap, they'll probably order the Oysterflex and just update their watch. But at the same token, it is a good move on their part, and I'll tell you why. They opened up the world of Sky-Dweller to those that haven't had a Sky-Dweller, right? Because think of it this way. If you're somebody that didn't buy a Sky-Dweller when it first came out on a strap, didn't buy into it when it came out on a bracelet, maybe it was too expensive. Didn't buy into the stainless steel, the two-tone version, because you didn't like them. You really like the gold one. Now, all of a sudden, by taking that same watch and putting it on a rubber strap, you may have found yourself a new client. And I think that was the smart move on their part, especially when you put in the hottest combinations. Out of the 3 watches, the black and yellow and the chocolate rose are the 2 hottest combinations, in my opinion. I guess That charcoal gray dial is also pretty cool, but the old chocolate dial, rose gold case, and the black and yellow combination are some of the nicest combination. The white and rose, not so much, again, in my opinion. But as I said, to each his own. And I think, again, this was a great way for Rolex to open up and try to get a client that was not that Sky-Dweller client, but again, not really modifying the watch, but just putting it on a different strap, but that may appeal to a potential customer out there that perhaps wasn't looking to buy a Sky-Dweller because he wasn't crazy about the previous models. Hope that makes sense. This is my quick run through the new Rolex models, my opinion, how I feel about them. Hope it's somewhat helpful because, again, a lot of you guys obviously asked and I had to kind of answer. And again, there was literally over 50 emails asking me about the new Rolex line, so I felt it was worthwhile to spend the first 10 minutes talking about it. And it still leaves me room to answer some more of your questions. So let's go into some questions. The first question I'm going to take actually has to do with new Rolex models. It comes from a gentleman by the name of Baxter.
Oh, Baxter, you are my little gentleman. This burrito is delicious, but it is filling.
Good morning, and thank you for answering my previous questions on your Q&A Tuesday. You're welcome. With Rolex due to announce new models, which they already did, or more accurately, new versions of existing model later this week, how quickly do new releases find their way onto the secondary market? They find their way onto the secondary market very, very quickly, as I mentioned earlier. Historically, especially with steel stuff, all the new models, they come out of the gate high because everybody wants them. And what do the ADs do? They don't sell it to their customer, they sell them to guys like me. When I told you the story about the new Smurf or the new white gold Submariner coming out and selling at $8,000 over list a second after it was posted on a dealer chat, that was by an AD. I actually don't know that AD personally, but that was an AD that posted it. So that guy is not looking to call a client in and say, hey, I got the new white gold Submariner, right? Come buy it. That guy just insured himself not only 37% profit off the retail of that watch, but also an additional $8,000, which is a huge hit on that watch. Eventually, he will sell it to some of his clients once the market sort of comes down, right? How quickly do I expect to be offered a new model? I can pre-order a bunch of new models already, and I am going to be pre-ordering them at overlist based on relationships that I have. It's sort of a gamble for us because you never know what's going to happen, but what I'm doing is I'm actually going to take those models to those clients. You won't even see them online. I'm going to take them to those clients that call me up and say, Roman, I don't give a shit what it costs. Get me that new model the minute you get your hands on it. I don't care what you're paying. I'll give you a 5-10% profit, and that's it. I'm very transparent. If I was the guy that bought that watch, I would have called my client and said, listen, this is what I just paid. I paid $8,000 over list. I actually wouldn't pay $8,000 over list, but let's say if I did, I would call him and say, I paid $8,000 over list. Give me a grand profit and take it, but you are overpaying. Be conscious of that. And then it says, how do you gauge the market price for such? I assume past performance of similar models is an indicator, but how reliable is this? It's not. I told you guys, none of this stuff is exact science. It's based on current market conditions, it's based on demand, it's based on supply, and that's it. Nobody's here to say that something won't happen next month. Well, all of a sudden the market takes a huge dump and all of a sudden nobody cares for these Rolexes because they care about something else, right? Is it a good indicator to say, look, if regular Submariners are trading over list already, then the other ones will trade over list as well? Absolutely, probably even more because it's also a new model, right? If you look at the Hulks and stuff like that, yes, absolutely, these things are going to follow suit. And then he also writes, as steel Rolex are difficult enough to get from an AD at the best of times, I'm curious to understand how quickly the new releases find their way into the market and what sort of premium above list. Time will show. I'm not going to predict anything, but you're going to see some outrageous prices on a lot of these new Rolex when they first hit the market. It may come down a little bit. It may stay there due to the hype that's out there already, as I said before. Other than that, I hope this sheds a little bit of extra light into the Rolex question. Here's a good one. Again, touched upon this a few times, but it's good to reiterate on this. Hi, Roman. Love the channel. I'm building my collection and buying what I love. I'm at a point where I have gotten my watches on the secondary market and saved money. I've never gotten a watch from an AD, but I have shopped them to see what I like. I have some watches I want to get that are current at ADs. There are some I will not buy from an AD as the price doesn't make sense, but some I'm thinking I would like to get from an AD. I'm thinking if I get a watch, say Rolex from an AD, I will first get to enjoy the experience and everything that should come with the watch. If in your experience, is there any value? If so, could you share as possible values to buying from an AD versus a secondary market, or no value other than being first with the watch? Thanks. As I told you, you may not be first with the watch. If you're talking about a new Rolex model, odds are that authorized dealer is gonna go out and resell those watches over list to someone like me. Of course, if you walk into a Rolex boutique and they happen to put you on the list, and you happen to have bought the brand new watch or got lucky, walked in somewhere in the world and picked up a watch that happened to be there, yes. So what's the value in the experience itself? It depends on how much you value that experience. And the experience is simply you walking into a very fancy store, possibly in some fancy location in the world, everybody gathering around, a guy with white gloves showing you a bunch of models, you're sitting down, being treated like royalty. It's the same experience you're going to get in any high-end store, right? Let's say if you walked into Louis Vuitton, or if you walked into Hermes, or if you walked to a Gucci or Prada, any one of those fancy schmancy stores to buy shoes or clothes, right? If you walk into a very expensive art gallery where they'll pour you champagne all day long if you're looking at $50,000 paintings, right? That experience, to me, is not worth the value of savings. So when it comes to Rolex, it's a whole different ballgame. But let's say if you're going in there and you're buying a watch on which you can potentially get 35 to 40% off from a guy like me or any other website out there, but you want the champagne experience and the white glove experience, if you're buying a $10,000 watch, is that really worth an extra 3-4 grand? As far as the pipe dream of building a relationship with an AD, yeah, you can build a relationship with an AD, and he'll get you stainless steel Daytonas, he'll get you the new Pepsis, the new Submariners, and all those things, but you're gonna have to be buying some other significant watches at retail. I know a gentleman that bought really, really high-end Pateks back in the day, perpetual calendars, annual calendars, things that are $50, $60, $100,000 plus from a Patek dealer who also happens to be a Rolex dealer, right? Guess what? He got a Daytona here and there. That was just a give me, right? So when he spent 120 grand on a Patek, yeah, he let him buy a Daytona at list, right? On which he actually resold, made some money. But at the end of the day, if the watch that he bought for 120,000, he could have picked up for, let's say, 80 on a secondary market, or even 90. That's a $30,000 difference. Even if he made 5,000, 6,000 on his Daytona, it still doesn't make financial sense. So the question is, is it worth building that relationship? You're not going to build a relationship with any AD out there if all you're going to do is walk every single dealer, put your name on a list to buy the hottest, the latest, and the greatest stuff that sells over a list, right? These guys walk into every single Rolex dealer 100 times a day, right? But even if you did, and I've told you this before, even if you did build a relationship, if somebody's offering a dealer $8,000 over list for a white gold Submariner, on which he's already making 37%, and with a high retail, that's a shitload of money to begin with, plus another $8,000, I don't care what relationship you have with him, he's going to sell that watch to that guy and not you. Hope that answers your questions. Here's a question that, for the first part, we're a little bit late because it does talk again about the 2020 releases. Comes from a gentleman by the name of Mark. And he did say, knowing the 2020 releases of Rolex in September with the rumors of Hull being discontinued, which of the three would you buy? And he actually followed up to an email. He ended up buying the Batgirl, right? And he also asked, do you think the Batgirl black-blue color scheme is here to stay, or just a phase like the vintage steel blue bezel Submariner? No, it's here to stay. The black and blue is going to stay, and it's going to stay for a while, just because of how popular it is. Everybody likes the Batman look, right? The blue and black. What do you think of Vacheron Overseas? I think they're great, especially that you can switch straps easily. I've been selling Vacheron Overseas, especially the plain ones, like hotcakes. The blue, the black, the white, all of them. I have all three in stock right now, and I keep restocking them as I sell them because they're a popular model. They are part of that holy trinity. It's a company with the longest continuous operating history in the watch world. I did an episode on Vacheron's history. Check it out if you didn't. What do I think about it? I think they're great, and I think they're a much better value for the money versus some of the hotter stuff like 5711 Nautiluses and the plain Jane Royal Oak, even though that's my favorite brand, right? And he says, Vacheron Constantin was always part of the Holy Trinity, but it seems it has fallen below the holy duo of Patek and AP, which you're taking this, and it has. And I discussed this in a previous episode. I'll have Ian link it, where I talked about the fact that Vacheron Constantin was pretty hot for a while, and I just don't think they did as good a job in terms of marketing. They felt that we're Vacheron Constantin, we've been around for a long, long time, and therefore we don't need to, have fancy ambassadors and fancy marketing and things of that nature. I've never emailed your YouTube channel for any inquiry questions before. I hope to see one or more of my questions on upcoming shows. We'll submit more questions as they come. Thank you very much, Mark. Just passionate about watches, small collector, and not in it for the investment. Love that. I had to read that bottom line because that's what I always preach. Vacheron will come back. Vacheron is not going anywhere. How about that? Let's start there. And Vacheron may come back bigger and stronger, I think, once their marketing department realizes that in today's day and age, if you out of sight, out of mind, that's what happens to your brand, right? But believe me when I tell you, they still sell like hotcakes. I buy Vacherons all the time. I sell Vacherons all the time, from vintage stuff to brand new stuff to modern stuff, and not just the overseas. A lot of the other models, there's still a huge following out there, but I guess they're the more quiet and conservative type, where they're not looking for the hype, they're looking for quality, value, and history, and Vacheron has all three of them just as much as Patek and AP do. And in my mind, they're still part of the holy trinity. Hope that answers your question. Here's a good one that's not very watch related, that's more business related, from Christopher. Hey Roman, how are you? Thanks for taking the time to answer my question before. In regards to a collab with Waco, I will send him a message and see what he thinks. Another subject, just got through your other videos. Great stuff as usual. I particularly love the one where you featured your son in his successful sneaker business. While still being under 18, I'm very impressed. Excellent parenting. How do you motivate him to go out on his own and build something that's successful? I'm asking not to pry, but as a guide on how to motivate my children when I decide to take the leap and get married and have kids. My family did well for ourselves here in the Philippines, and I can say that me and most of my cousins seem to lack the drive or motivation to build something. I only recently got the drive to go out and help build one of our family businesses. I don't want my kids to fall into the same trap I almost fell into when I was growing up with a privileged upbringing. You don't have to feature this query on your channel, just wanted to get your thoughts. Thanks. Keep the videos coming. Chris, I actually do want to feature this on my channel because, I'll be honest with you, I sometimes wonder that question myself, right? There's an old saying where they say, you know what, the first generation makes it, the second generation takes it to the next level, and the third generation spends it all, right? That does not have to be true, right? It's all about values, right? All my kids, you can say, were born with a silver spoon in their mouth. Although when my son was born, I was still living in a small condo. But as he was growing up, my business became more successful. You guys know I told you that my business is actually as old as my son. My wife was 6 months pregnant when Luxury Bazaar started, right? And he's 17 now. So, he, for the most part, for majority of his childhood as he was growing up, we were doing better, bigger house, nicer cars, better vacations, all the beautiful things that come along with it, and then later private school and things of that nature, right? I've always talked to my son, and not just my son, but most of my kids, right? Again, provided it's age appropriate, as if they're adults, right? I've always discussed financial things with my son, right? Things like our net worth, things like our investments, things as to why I'm investing into all this. And the key word here is why.
And it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do.
But one of the things I always put forth was the fact that you should be successful. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be successful, which today's world translates to a heavy bank account, right? But it's the why you want to have a lot of zeros in your bank account is the biggest reasons. The art of making money is only one part. The second part is trying to stay humble, and at the same token, doing it for the right reasons. And it's those very reasons that I instill in my kids till this day and will continue instilling. I still have a 40-year-old and a 12-year-old, right? It's this very thing that I'm going to continue instilling in my thing is, again, the why. What are the reasons for being successful? It's not a fancy watch. It's not a fancy car. It's not a big house, right? Those are perks that come along with being successful and being able to be a money-making machine, right? But it's the family values. It's the fact that I can provide what I provide for my kids. A lot easier with my older child because he's sort of progress. With my middle and my little one's going to be kind of tough. They were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, right? They started in private school right away, unlike my son, who only started in middle school, right? But with him, it was a bit easier. And again, it was the why, where I explained to him as to why I go out every single day and work hard, right? It's the fact that I can take you guys anywhere I pretty much want to show you the world, to show you the country, to show you history. I've mentioned before, my kids have been to every single Hall of Fame in the United States of America. My kids have been up and down both East and West Coast, all the way up from Canada down to Florida and down to San Diego on the other side, right? They've been to major metropolitan areas. And not just been there, we went to Chicago, stayed in a fancy hotel, had a fancy few dinners. No, we're talking museums, we're talking about history, we're talking about architectural history, we're talking about American history, we're talking about tours, we're talking about educational stuff, right? Sometimes it was boring to them. And, one time my son asked me, he's like, Dad, why do you do this? Why do you drag us all over the place? Anytime we get off school, we'll drive to a big city or fly to a big city and we'll go to a bunch of museums and look at history and take those walking tours and things like that. And my answer was always simple. It's because when you grow up, I want you to do the same thing with your kids. I want you to be not only, well-rounded when it comes to schoolwork, but I also want you to be culturally rounded, right? Be aware of your surroundings. Be aware of the fact that there's a lot more out there than, let's say, staying at home playing TV or just going to fancy dinners. And it's the fact that I was able to become eventually successful enough to be able to afford to do all those things. Because even going somewhere on a budget, and we have plenty of times in the past, still requires an amount of money, the ability to take off, which you can when you work for yourself, right? And this is the type of life that I'm able to now provide to my family. And this is why I strive to be more successful, to make more money. Not to buy myself a fancy car, not to buy myself a fancy house or a fancy watch or another fancy bag for my wife.
What the hell did you just say?
Again, those are perks that do come. But if you're going to strive for success, and your definition of success is going to be all the fancy toys that money can buy you, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. To me, it's the lifestyle that I provide for my family. The financial freedom to be able to send my children to the best schools. My kid's getting ready to go to college, right? I'm going to pay for his college, right? And it's not even a question of buying he started driving recently, and it wasn't about buying him a fancy car. I didn't buy my kid a BMW or Mercedes, you know. I also didn't buy him a 1982 station wagon LTD that was my first car, which looked like a freaking casket on wheels, right? And it was all beat to and used and barely ever worked, right?
Piece of car. I got a piece of car.
It was the ability to buy him a safer new car, right? And give my wife the peace of mind so she can sleep better at night when he's out there driving, which she, by the way, still doesn't. Every time he drives somewhere, she doesn't sleep. So those are the things that I try to instill into my kids. And I believe it gives them the right kind of motivation to get out there and be successful in whatever it is that they do, right? My son's success today, he told me, I asked him about it. He said, listen, it's like, I'm giving myself a taste of my abilities. Am I able to get out there and do all this stuff? Prior to going to college, he managed to realize that business entrepreneurship is what he wants to do. He's good at it. He managed to test the grounds with a very successful sneaker business. I mean, last month, my kid took home more profit than an average American takes home probably 3 to 4 months, right? So it is indeed very successful, but money doesn't go to his head. He's also not super frugal. I teach him not to be frugal. I teach him to enjoy the spoils of life, right? Which is why he went out there and bought himself a Rolex. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up?
You want to do me a favor?
What's up?
Can I switch cars with you?
I got a piece of car.
When?
Like now. I'll pull up to your office.
Okay, call me when you pull up. But at the same token, I teach him not to be crazy with your money, to save. So my kid's 17 years old. He opened up a Roth IRA. He's putting money away into a mutual fund on a monthly basis. He's doing a lot of things to already start thinking about his financial future at the age of 17, all while enjoying life, being the 17-year-old that he is, and money not going to his head. So again, this is how I choose to raise my kids, and sounds to me you're still a kid yourself. So, you know, it's something that you should probably take pointers from as well. And I know it's a lot harder to have this drive when everything's already kind of given to you growing up in a successful family or a silver spoon in your mouth. But that doesn't mean you can't have the same drive or motivation and then some than that of your parents. And usually when you have that, you usually end up outdoing your parents. So I'm sure whatever it is you decide to do, you'll be pretty successful at it too, and you will pass that on to your kids. Well, guys, not to get off topic, I know this was a watch channel. This question is a little bit out of left field, but I tell you guys all the time, I feel like you guys are my family, and I can share whatever I want with you. So therefore, I decided to take this question. Other than that, hope you enjoyed today's episode. As usual, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're not already a subscriber. And as usual, I ask you to share this video with your friends among your social media, because this is what helps my channel grow organically. Other than that, guys, I'll see you next Tuesday.